Hey guys, thank you. Hey guys, good evening. Now, Anthony, I'm no Seth Rollins, but I hate football right now. So let's not talk about it tonight. Let's just
No,
not.
no,
Okay.
I don't want to talk about
Uh,
football.
yeah, you were on a bye, Jay. I mean, even the Giants like one of your other teams. Anyway, I'm Steven Rabinowitz and part of my voice.
I'm Jay Kaplan, and I've got all of my voice.
I mean, this straight. I got all the time in the world thanks to a failed vacation plan. But hey, what can I say? I get to lay around and watch anime all day for the next 6 days.
You were going to do that anyway most of the time, except have to go to work in between. Anyway, on the Sports Lines 2023 NBA preview is on. Doesn't it seem like the Denver Nuggets were just winning their first NBA championship after beating the Miami Heat? It really does. Well, the NBA regular season begins in just 6 days. So we'll preview the locals and the association. Also, doesn't it seem like the Yankees and Mets had hope? That was a long time ago, though. Well, they're gone, and we're smack dab into the championship series. So we'll talk about that as well. And in fact, we're all going to do it in one segment. So I will introduce each of you and your particular series. We'll start with Jay. Let's start with the ALCS as we go to Texas, known for 10-gallon hats, the Texas State Fair, bucket list of mine, South by Southwest, also a bucket list of mine, and the Cowboys. Yuck. And also 100% of the ALCS. The Texas Rangers, who have now won 7 straight games this postseason, had the first 2 of them won in the ALCS, beating the Astros in Houston twice. Game 1, 2-0. Game 2, 5-4. They are down at home 5-2 in game number 3. So that streak is a little bit in jeopardy. Jay, what's the one big thing that has been going on in this series so far?
For me, it's got to be the Rangers pitching, and not just at the front end of their rotation. I'm gonna start this with a little history lesson, so bear with me. Back in 1948, when the Braves were still in Boston, they had a starting rotation led by Hall of Famer Warren Spahn. His 363 wins are the most in baseball history by a lefty, and Johnny Sain, who was a 20-game winner for the Braves 4 times in a 5-year span from 46 through 50, including a Major League best 24 in 1948. After that, things got a little iffy for the Braves on the Hill, which is why the duo started 74 of the Braves' 154 games that season, including 8 in a 10-game stretch from Labor Day through September 18, going 8-0 with a combined area of under 2 as the team was fighting for the pennant. So Spahn and Sain and Pray for Rain became a rallying cry for the fans, shortening a poem written by an editor at the Boston Post in September of that year. Coming into the postseason, the Rangers version of that might have been Monty and hopefully Nate, and then it's up to fate. Because as you'll remember from our last show when we previewed the ALDS between the Rangers and the Orioles, I noted that beyond number 1 starter Jordan Montgomery, the rotation was a little iffy. Nathan Eovaldi had some second-half velocity-related effectiveness issues. Dane Dunning just had a bad second-half period. Jacob deGrom was out due to injury, as was Max Scherzer, or so we thought. And the bullpen was, and this was what I wrote on the, what I said on the show, resembling a dumpster fire that's had gasoline thrown on it, going 30 for 63 in save situations, and MLB worst 47.6% success rate. No team in Major League Baseball history, guys, had ever blown more saves than they've converted and made the playoffs, let alone make it to the ALCS. Now, a staff like that had 0 chance against the defending champs, right? Well, as college game days, Lee Corso was fond of saying, not so fast, my friend. Montgomery has been everything the Rangers could want in a number 1. He held the Astros to 0 runs on 5 hits and 6 1/3 with 6 Ks in the 2-0 win in game 1. And Eovaldi has flipped the switch in October as he's done in the past. He's now 7-3 in his career, and his teams are 11-3 in his postseason starts. And he grinded out a quality start in the 5-4 game 2 win, 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 9 Ks, getting out of a bases loaded jam in the a bases loaded 0 outs jam along the way. But the big difference has been the bullpen. And if you look at the numbers from regular season versus postseason through game 1 of the ALCS, all the key stats, ERA, fielding independent pitching, homers per 9, walk rate, batting average on balls in play have all gone down. The only stat that's gone up is strikeout percentage, and that's one whose trajectory you want to see rise. The difference in ERA is huge, 477 down to 186. As is the difference there in their homers per nine from 1.36 to 0.93. That's almost a 30% drop. Batting average on balls in play from 284 down to 205. For context, the major league average on BIP this year was 297. So you could make the case that the Rangers relievers getting a little bit lucky, but you could also make the case that the defense behind them has been stellar. Now, other than Aroldis Chapman's disaster of an eighth inning in game 2, where he gave up, a 2-out bases empty home run to Yordan Alvarez to make it a 1-run game, the pen has kept it going. Josh Sborz and Jose Leclerc have locked down the end of each of these 2 wins, throwing a combined 4 scoreless, hitless innings. Overall in the postseason, those 2 have thrown a combined 11 2/3 innings pitched, allowing just 1 earned run. That's a .080 ERA on just 1 hit. A solo home run by Aaron Hicks off Leclerc in the ALDS, and they've struck out 7. Now, game 3 tonight obviously was going to be the big test for Scherzer, for the Texans, with Scherzer starting after a 36-day layoff due to injury. That's the 4th longest gap between appearances before starting a postseason game in Major League Baseball history. Would the Rangers get Mad Max or Mortal Max, who's 28% highest in a full season since 2013, and his home run rate of 4.5, the worst it's ever been? And how would he fare against an Astros team that had the best road record in Major League Baseball at 51-30, have won 16 of their last 19 away from Minute Maid Park? Their hitters led the American League in road runs, 462, 5.7 a game, 130 home runs, 268 batting average, and a 798 OPS. And their pitchers had an AL best 3.62 road ERA. Oh, and in case you forgot, the last time the Astros went up I-45 to Globe Life Field at the beginning of September, they swept the Rangers by scores of 13-6, 14-1, and 12-3. Well, they got a very mortal Max, who was done after 4 innings on 63 pitches, 5 runs, all earned, 5 hits, including a home run to Jose Altuve, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk. That's an 11.25 ERA. As I'm talking to you right now, there's 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th, and so far, the Rangers bullpen has allowed 0 runs, and I'm going to check this real quick, on 0 hits. So the bullpen, at least, is doing, is keeping it going. Right now, as Rabbi said, Texas is down 5-2. I'm going to leave you guys with this in terms of, because this is obviously, topsy-turvy in terms of how you normally see things go in a playoff series. Teams taking a 2-0 lead in all best-of-7 postseason series have gone on to win that series 75 times out of 89. That's 84%. In series with the current 2-3-2 format, which this league championship series will be, teams to take games 1 and 2 on the road, like the Rangers have done, have gone on to win that series 26 out of 29 times. That's a 90% win percentage. 3 exceptions, all in the World Series. Yankees against Atlanta in 96, Mets against the Red Sox in 86, and the Royals against the Cardinals in 85. And yet, guys, somehow both teams can make the case that they have the opponent right where they want them. So we'll see how this goes. But, as I kind of was concerned about, Rangers rotation after Eovaldi and Montgomery, bullpen though, still continuing to be that pleasant surprise.
Which is going to be huge. By the way, as Anthony would say, that's prime playoff Max Scherzer, as his post-Washington days have
That's
not,
true. He does not
been
have
good
the
over the last 3 years. Not at all. One thing that's actually interesting, by the way, Chris Stratton's given up 2 hits for the Rangers tonight.
There we go.
One thing that's interesting though in that series going forward is the Rangers did not give up a crooked number to the Astros until that 2nd inning, giving up 3, and that's game 2. Never mind game 1, that was a Jordan Montgomery gem, as he's done this whole postseason. In game 2, 1 run, 1 run, 1 run, 1 run. One thing that the Texas Rangers do is, and it's been mentioned many times, they're like a basketball team, they're like the Golden State Warriors. When they score, they continue to score, and they continue to score, and then they continue to score.
Mhm.
For the Phillies, they just don't need to continue to score. They just bash the ball over the wall. Anthony has the NLCS big thing, also a 2-0 series in favor of the Philadelphia Phillies over the Arizona Diamondbacks after 5-4 and 10-0. David Akers with the field goal, or whoever it is, Jake Elliott with the field goal, obviously to make it 10, as they won in Citizens Bank Park in games 1 and 2 respectively. Do you expect the Diamondbacks to compete? Well, the Phillies, according to the classic James Bond quote from the movie Goldfinger, the Phillies are saying, no, we expect you to die. We have
Well
many ways
played.
of making you do so.
Well played, Rabbi.
Anthony, in this 7-1 Phil's postseason run, including a perfect 6-0 at home, the one big thing for the Phillies is all the ways they can try to stake through your team.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like if you blink in the first inning, you're gonna miss something. I mean, this thing, it's just been amazing when you have Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner at the top of your lineup to start a game. And we've seen, at least in the last 4 games, that either one of those guys can go deep. I mean, it's the fact, I think what's caught my attention is how many solo home runs this team has hit. They've hit, 13 of their 19 home runs in this postseason.
And a ton of them, by the way, I think 7 of them are on the first pitch.
Yeah.
So you can't sleep with this team.
Yeah, I think Kyle Schwarber says selective aggressiveness. Basically, if you try to groove a fastball like what happened last night, it's pretty much gonna hit out of the park. But it's not just the hitting too; it's the pitching as well. Zach Wheeler had a strong game 1 start. Aaron Nola pitched solid last night. 6 scoreless innings. And about this last year, he was inconsistent. But here's a stat that the TBS crew was discussing, that if Phillies pitching this postseason, 51 strikeouts to go with 4 walks. So they're not putting anybody on the base, and they're getting guys out, and they're attacking the hitters right away. But the offense is getting a lot of the attention, and rightfully so. Through the first 2.5 rounds, obviously, the wild card, division series, and now post 2 games in LCS, the Phillies have scored 46 runs in the first 8 games of the playoffs. And I mentioned the 19 home runs, 15 in the past 4 games, and 6 in the first 2 games alone. They've had 3 multi-home run games from Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, Nick Castellanos, who has always had incredible timing when it comes to hitting home runs. Absolutely. Yeah, I think someone told him the Jets score, and he decided to hit a home run to kind of chill things up. He has a habit of hitting a home run during some very grim news. But here's another stat that I was looking up earlier today. According to ESPN, they actually do something nice for a change. The Phillies, 12 of the 19 home runs, like you mentioned, has come off the first pitch. But here's the thing. The chase rate, which is 26 in Major League Baseball in the regular season, is 5 points. Is actually 5 points down from 31% to 26%. So they've actually been more selective and more careful with how they approach each at bat. The 2020 Phillies, obviously, what we're talking about now, they joined the 2008 Rays. This is the only team postseason history to go at least 3 times, to go deep at least 3 times in 4 consecutive postseason games. And you think about this, the offense, for all intents and purposes, with the pitching, Philadelphia has thrown 19 pitches when trailing in this postseason compared to 860 pitches when they're holding a lead. So pretty much you got to think back to the first couple innings of this division series against Atlanta, and obviously the Braves coming back late in game 2. That's the only time the Phillies have trailed at any point in this postseason. I do want to see if the home run match is going to continue. We know Citizens Bank Park is a bandbox. There is one. Chase Field is a much bigger stadium. It clearly favors the Diamondbacks and the speed that they have. But Phillies have done a good job of keeping that speed off the base path. For Arizona, they gotta get on base. They gotta get their speed going. They gotta be able to get to this pitching, and particularly find a way to scratch out runs. They gotta score, because obviously the Phillies offense haven't let up. and this pitching staff has been very good. Even the relievers has been very solid.
You know,
Yeah.
I got to throw this in, Rabbi. I mean, Anthony, you talked about the home runs, and obviously everybody is talking about the home runs, and of course, my good buddy Jason Stark had a little weird and wild on this. So think about this, guys, and this is from Jason's piece earlier this week after game 2. Through check this out, they've out-homered Arizona, Atlanta, and Miami. So far through the postseason, they've out-homered their opponents 19-4. Okay. No other team in MLB history has out-homered their opponents by 15 or more over any 8-game span in a postseason. And just at home, in 6 home games, they've out-homered their opponents 17-2. That's the biggest home run differential at home in a single postseason in Major League Baseball history. So you talk about them mashing their way so far through the playoffs. I mean, this is ridiculous.
It's not just ridiculous, though. The fact that you have the best 1-2 combination, possibly of any team this postseason when they're on in Wheeler and Nola. The ERA, those first 8 games for the Phillies, is 1.39. There's only one team in MLB history through the first 8 games that has had a better ERA for the first 8 games of the postseason. That was the 1983 Orioles. Anthony, you and I were not even alive back then. The one thing I'm looking for going forward in this series, as we all mourn the Liberty losing in game 4. We're gonna that. Unfortunately. But the one thing I'm looking for is the fact that this is a rare,
and we can warn the Rangers bullpen actually now being mortal again. They gave up a run in the set. They've given up 2 runs now on 3 hits in 3 innings so far.
And kill the Astros. Back to me here before. So let's put a bow on this segment before we move on, guys. The one thing that I'm really interested in seeing is the Diamondbacks this postseason have played 6 of their 7 games on the road, and the Phillies have played 6 of their 8 games on the road. So finally, we're going to see what happens with the Phillies, who are about an average team playing in not really a bandbox over in Phoenix. So although the Arizona Diamondbacks crushed 4 home runs in an inning against the Dodgers in the NLDS, I'm interested to see what happens. The Diamondbacks look pretty comfortable at home, but they haven't really had any home cooking. Now they'll be able to get it on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And we'll see if that changes the series at all, or does the series ever go back to Philadelphia? It seems like the Phillies are on a mission this year. Not a lot. All right, let's move over to the NBA because, that was in the title of the show. So legally, got to go through it. Not a lot of expectations were put on the 22-23 Knicks, but they had a season that made people remember, oh, yeah, they could be a fun team sometimes when they're like this. The Knicks season of 22-23 gave them a 47-35 record, a 5th seed, a first-round playoff series victory for the first time in a decade, beating the Cleveland Cavaliers and fellow forever linked to New York Knicks, Donovan Mitchell. But unfortunately, that run was halted by the brick wall that was the 2022-23 Heat, losing to them in 6 games. So what can the Knicks do for an encore? We'll talk a variety of topics as we say, go New York, go New York, go. Oh yeah, I love partiality. Anthony, seems pretty obvious, but give me a player to watch in the Knicks for 2023.
Well, it has to be the captain on this one, and that's Jalen Brunson. And remember, once upon a time last season, we was debating who was the Knicks' best player, Julius Randle or RJ Barrett. Yeah, we can start debating who the best player of this team is.
It was C, none of the above.
Yeah, it was definitely Brunson by far. Like, in his first season, all he did was average a career high points, 24 points a game, 3.5 rebounds, shot 49% from the field, 41% from threes. Was even better in the playoffs. In the 11 games against Cleveland and Miami, averaging 27 points a game. But he's obviously becoming more the focal point of the offense. Got more shots, career high, and that 12 field goals a game as opposed to with Dallas. Went up to 17 a game with the Knicks. But then you look at it like this. When you look at the Knicks, and he played 68 games, and it's a night and day comparison with this team when he's on the court as to when he's not on the court. And granted, Emmanuel quickly filled in pretty well, averagely at times last season, but Brunson's clearly the guy. I mean, You saw in Game 6 where he almost single-handedly kept the Knicks season alive down in Miami, scoring 40 points. He was player of the month in February last year. For whatever reason, did not make the All-Star team. But I am interested to see what can he do for an encore year two. Obviously, he's going to have more pressure on him. Clearly, the Knicks are not sneaking up on anybody this time around. But I do think the experience that he might have had playing on Team USA in the World Basketball Championships may help to some extent. Maybe he might pick up a few things here and there. But clearly, with the Knicks season, if they want to build on last year, it's going to have to be Brunson playing, if not as much, if not better than what he did a year ago. Because we've seen when this Knicks team had the offense go through Julius Randle or even Barrett sometimes, how the offense tends to get stagnant. So Brunson being on the court, keeps the offense tonight against Washington. And in the first quarter, you saw that the ball movement was there. He was able to get guys open. So it's not just his scoring, but his facilitating that's going to help the Knicks offensively. And on the defensive side, he has had his hiccups here and there, but ultimately the Knicks as a team was a lot better. Of course, I'm gonna set this one up for you, Jay, because you have the X factor in this equation, and he's a former Villanova teammate of Jalen Brunson that came over in a trade.
Villanova teammates with this Knicks team, you're going to have to be a lot more specific than that, Anthony.
Villanova teammates, Villanova classes, Villanova everything.
Okay.
There are 4 guys currently on the roster.
Okay, the Villanova teammate who just had twins and is notorious for eating during press conferences. That guy.
Jay actually has an X factor that not only is that guy who's mentioned, but actually took some time to actually go into the non-Villanova division of the Buck.
The X factor is headlined by 2 of Brunson's former Villanova teammates. That would be Josh Hart and the recently acquired Dante DiVincenzo. But I kind of did a little bit of a deeper dive, and it looks like Tibbs has something he wants to do with the second unit. And this to me is, if this happens, this is the real X factor. So this is a 2-part equation, since the Knicks are using 2 players to replace 1 spot in the rotation. That would be Obi Toppin's backup power forward role, or solve for X, if you will. Former Villanova teammates, forward Josh Hart, acquired in February from Portland, and guard Dante DiVincenzo, acquired this offseason from Golden State, will combine to a certain extent to replace what Toppin gave them when Julius Randle sat, as well as a little more, based on what Coach Tom Thibodeau is looking to get from his second unit, which Hart and DiVincenzo will be big parts of, alongside guard Emmanuel Quickly and center Isaiah Hartenstein, along with starting small forward RJ Barrett, who will run with them as the alpha option on offense, which is the philosophy is, what Tibbs is looking to do here is, for whoever gets a defensive rebound, just go. During Thibodeau's 4 seasons in New York, the Knicks' second unit has always played fast compared to the starters. When Derrick Rose led the second unit, they constantly played at a fast pace, especially in transition, with Toppin as the leak out king. And even as they come into the season without Rose or Toppin, how Tibbs wants the second unit to play is not going to change philosophically, just how that philosophy gets executed. Forget about the typical traditional defensive rebound outlet pass. Any member of this second unit can grab a defensive rebound, initiate the break, which is exactly what Thibodeau wants. Here's his take on it. Quote, When you study transition, oftentimes those are the hardest breaks to stop. When a guard gets a long rebound and he goes, you create easy offense from that. Oftentimes, if you have a 4 or a guy like Josh, when he gets it and he goes, that puts people at a big disadvantage, end quote. Last season, grabbing a defensive rebound and getting directly out on the break was Quickly's MO. He chased down long rebounds and head up court at full throttle. Those forays were successful to the tune of 119.5 points per 100 possessions. That is a ridiculous statistic, but he was the only member of the second unit who could do it. Not anymore. And while this season's second unit may be smaller than last season's, with the 6'5" DiVincenzo replacing the 6'9" Toppin in the rotation and the 6'5" Hart replacing him as the backup at power forward, the numbers actually make the case that they're actually a better rebounding unit than they were last season and could lead to them being a much more better transition unit. Hart, obviously, one of the most ridiculous rebounding smalls in the game today. He'll be in the rotation from day one this season. And while he may be undersized as compared to a conventional format, he probably fits the role in the second unit better than Toppin did. The Knicks scored, and this is outrageous is the only way to describe this, 127.9 points per 100 possessions on plays that followed a Josh Hart defensive rebound in the regular season last year, according to stats from Second Spectrum. This summer, while Hart was playing with Team USA in the World Cup, head coach Steve Kerr relayed a line that Miami head coach Eric Spoelstra told him about Hart. Here's the quote of Spoelstra as relayed by Kerr. Some people get 50-50 balls. Hart gets the 30-70 balls. Coach Spo wasn't wrong. The number says the Knicks offense after Hart's defensive rebounds was as efficient as the Golden State Warriors offense would be if Steph Curry took a three-pointer on every possession and still had the same Hall of Fame level of efficiency. This grab-and-go strategy that Tibbs wants to employ also worked for Golden State last season, with DiVincenzo playing somewhat of the Josh Hart role, if you will, with the Warriors. The Dubs scored 117.6 points per 100 possessions on plays that followed his defensive rebounds. Not as a ridiculous a number as Hart's, but still more than the Knicks scored on average on those plays last season. And last but not least, there's Hartenstein, who's already well known for his ability to get out on the break get the break going as an outlet passer off the defensive glass. The Knicks scored 125.8 points per 100 possessions on plays following his defensive rebounds per Second Spectrum stats. So whether he's collecting missed shots at the rim or the others are collecting misses that rebound longer, something that has become increasingly important in today's NBA, where there are more jump shots and thus more errant attempts that ricochet to the free throw line or beyond, the Knicks second unit has the skill set required to take advantage. If they can get stops, they'll be off to the races and they'll get buckets, just like Tibbs is envisioning.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this team does this season, because the Hart factor was so huge last year and led to the immediate winning streak that Josh Hart is always trying to say that wasn't on me. But one thing I'm very curious to see, though, is best case, worst case scenario for this team, I think, is for the Knicks, stay the course. Just get the same kind of positioning that you did last year. You're not in Boston's level yet. You're not in Milwaukee's level yet. Honestly, you want to be in that Miami-Philly range just in terms of regular season. You're going to have to overachieve a little bit in the regular season, but as we saw in the postseason, Miami just had the better structure. That got a little taken down this postseason, but the Knicks are planning for the future. I don't know if it's going to be this year that they're going to get the next big star, but that has to come, because you can't compete with the loaded lineups like Boston and Milwaukee in this division. Or honestly, you can't also consistently you can't consistently play against Joel Embiid with the lineup you have, because Mitchell Robinson isn't necessarily going to be cutting it. Worst case scenario is Playinville, and it's the worst one spot you don't want to be as a team. Now, teams like the Heat and Lakers kind of turned it into a miracle run last year, but usually that means that you're just not good enough to be in the top 6 and not bad enough to tank and to have your picks. And one thing that the Knicks do have, which is almost rare in any Knicks era that I've seen, is all of their picks. Mm-hmm. So that's going to lead to something in the future, possibly, if this team thinks they're on the cusp. And as Anthony can tell you, last year, who I think had Tom Thibodeau at least fired twice before the calendar turned to 2023,
3 times actually.
It was 3 times. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. This could be. We haven't had a lot of consistency with New York teams lately, and the Knicks did not have a lot of consistency the year after they made the playoffs in 2021. Hopefully, they see a repeat of 2023 and not a repeat of the 21-22 season. All right. Now that the floor is closed, let's move over to the Brooklyn Nets. The 2022-23 Brooklyn Nets season started with KD, Kyrie, Steve Nash as Steve Nash as coach and hope for an NBA championship. It ended with KD and Kyrie on different teams, thank God. Steve Nash fired, too bad, and a 45-37 campaign that got the Nets a first-round sweep, the only one of the 2023 postseason, to the Philadelphia 76ers. Hi, Jay. Seen in more functional times, it seems like that time. All right, let's do the same thing and go to Ant first. Anthony, who's the bridge to a new era on Star Watch?
By the way, you realize that the Nets in back-to-back years is the only team to not win a single postseason game in the playoffs. They've been swept back-to-back seasons.
They were, yeah.
That's a tough pill to swallow if you're a Net fan. But if there's any guy who has the rabbi uses his mic for a second, but if there's any guy that can help the Nets turn that around, it'd be Mikal Bridges. And it's a tale to like the Nets. It's a tale of 2 different seasons for Bridges. Last year, he started out with the Suns. Injuries to that lineup gave him a bigger role. He averaged 20 points a game for the season, and obviously he showed what a versatile player he is. After the trade to the Nets, he averaged 26 points a game, close to 5 rebounds a game, and shot 89% from the charity swipe. And what makes Bridges such a big part is the fact that he kind of fits what Jacques Vaughn wants to be in Brooklyn, more of a defensive minded basketball team, because we know he's well rounded offensively. He's had some big scoring games. He can obviously trust the paint, being an inside outside scorer. But he's also a versatile defensive player, 3-and-D player, who has made all defensive NBA a couple of, not last season, but in the past with the Suns. And with the Nets, that's going to be important because Vaughn is a coach who wants to play defense. We saw last year in the postseason. That's where the Nets are actually at their best, when they get the stops defensively and they're able to get play more up tempo. And Bridge, along with Cam Johnson and obviously Jay's X Factor, Ben Simmons,
Spoiler alert.
being engaged. You expecting, and I was at the net preseason game last Thursday. I noticed that they're playing a little more up tempo, particularly after defensive styles. And Bridges being a defensive wing player who let me give me a second right here. Defensive player. I'm starting to come down with a cold a little bit, so you gotta forgive me just a second.
Oh, I feel so sorry for you right now.
Defensively, this is all again. He's 8th in the NBA defensive plus minus among small forwards. So obviously that's his presence on the court on both sides is a big deal for the Brooklyn Nets. And he's a must-pro 3-point shooter, so that's gonna be a big thing as well. We look at the Nets as a whole. This is a team that can fall anywhere from being a playing team to missing the playoffs altogether. I mean, this is one of those teams that just kind of in between. But unlike in previous past where the Nets have gone superstar route and blown it up, the Nets have a plenty of draft picks to reload. They won I feel like they won the KD trade. They won the Kyrie trade. They got a good squad going into the season at the very least. But Bridges is going to be the key because they need that go-to guy on the team that pretty much anybody could be a go-to scorer on a given night. We've seen Cam Johnson go off for big games as well. But I think Bridges obviously is the guy. Spencer Dinwiddie is that veteran presence that could bring this team together. So it'll be interesting to see just how this team fails, especially in the Eastern Conference, as getting loaded all of a sudden. If you look at the top of the Eastern Conference.
Top two of the Eastern Conference. And let's hold the brakes here on saying that the Nets won the KD trade.
I am not on the Milwaukee Bucks bandwagon just yet. I'm just
But
going to put it out there.
let's hold the brakes on saying that the Nets won a trade after half of the season. We haven't seen if we can get a full of the season.
I
with
would
Kevin
say
Durant.
that no, they won a trade because Kyrie Irving has gone on his yearly "I want to be a team leader" speech, and we all know how that's played out.
That's a separate trade, by the way. That's the Dallas trade.
Rabbi, if Anthony is using addition by subtraction, then yes, the Nets won that trade.
The Dallas trade and this trade and the Phoenix trade are two separate trades. Just a heads up here. So they might have won the trades collectively, but we don't know if they've won the Phoenix trade yet. Because again, Kevin Durant, kind of a generational player. You know, Ben Simmons used to be a generational player until Ben used to be.
Which generation are you referring to?
The generation that
certainly not this one.
It's the generation that can't shoot and tries to do everything else and is
gotcha.
All right, so let's cut the Instagram post bullshit back. He's back. What do you expect out of Ben Simmons this year, as he is your Nets X factor?
He is, and I'm full disclaimer and, warning label up front. There will be a mini rant in here because,
shocker. I'm shocker that you're going to use your Philadelphia 76ers.
It'll be a mini rant. It'll be mini. I'm not going to completely rehash history. I've already rehashed too much, but let's get into it. Simmons might qualify more as a wild card than an X factor, but his return from injury and his ability to fit in with this revamped team could go a long way in determining the success or failure for the Nets. Now, Simmons missed the final 40 games of last season. He's missed 122 of the last 164 games the Nets have played over the last two seasons. Just 21 total minutes with leading scorer Mikal Bridges after Bridges was acquired from Phoenix in the Kevin Durant trade. Simmons came into camp saying he's in as good a place both physically, the back and knee pain that ruined last season no longer seemed to be an issue, and mentally. He's gotten past the drama of his final season with the Sixers and this past season with the Nets, as he's been in years. If this proves to be the case, and he's back to what he used to be, then the Nets' prognosis improves, especially if he's also over his shooting issues. Now, remember, from 2017-18 through 2020-21, Simmons was an elite defender, holding opposing players to 42.2% shooting when he was the closest defender. Per ESPN stats and info, that was the third lowest rate among 147 players who defended at least 2,000 shots. Simmons was also one of only two players to defend both guards and forwards at least 7,500 times in the half court. Milwaukee Bucks All-Star Chris Middleton was the other. And according to ESPN stats and info, they also had Simmons as one of four players in NBA history. Magic, the Big O, and Luka are the other three to average at least 7 boards and 7 dimes per game through his first 4 seasons. He won Rookie of the Year, went to 3 consecutive All-Star games in his first 4 seasons, earned 2 first-team All-Defense and 1 third All-NBA honors along the way. The only thing preventing him from being practically unguardable was the lack of a consistent shot. That deficiency was on full display in Philly's 7-game playoff loss to the Atlanta Hawks in the 2021 Eastern Conference semis, and he hasn't been the same since. He was tentative and indecisive in that series, would not attack the basket because of his free throw struggles. He shot just 34.2% from the line. Had he hit just his season free throw percentage of 61.3, the Sixers likely would have won the series. Instead, 3 for 10 from the stripe in the 4-point loss in game 1. 1 of 5 in the 3-point loss in game 4. A horrific 4 of 14 in the 3-point loss in game 5. He took just 2 free throws and only attempted 4 field goals in the 7-point game 7 loss, passing up a dunk late in the game when Philly still had a shot to win, perhaps due to fear that the Hawks would foul him and make him try and shoot free throws. More ink was spilled in Philly about his shooting yips in the aftermath of that series than was used to write the Constitution, and I personally ranted about it way too much on more than one show. The bottom line is this, guys. If Simmons really wants to write a new chapter to his story, he has to prove it on the court. He has 1 year remaining on his contract after this season, so this is as prove it a year as it gets. And he returns to a net team that is very different than when he came to as part of the James Harden trade. Brooklyn can spread the floor of the shooters and long physical wings like Bridges Cam Johnson, Royce O'Neal, and Dorian Finney-Smith. Nick Claxton has become a 30-minute-a-night center, second in the NBA in blocks last season. Spencer Dinwiddie, as Anthony alluded to, has made the case to be the Nets starting point guard with his ability to create shots for himself and others. Now, this does give head coach Jacques Vaughn the flexibility to use multiple lineups around Simmons, who, until he consistently shows otherwise, is a non-shooter. Now, Simmons believes he should be playing point guard and not center, where he was kind of put last year. Something he's been quite clear about. Now, Vaughn was asked about Simmons playing at the point it started training camp, and he agreed with it, but only to a certain extent. Here's the quote. I would use the word agreement more so than commitment. The agreement is if he's playing at a consistent and high level, then I think our pictures look exactly the same. I think you can kind of put it in that category, end quote. Read between those lines what you will. Now, I've referenced it multiple times so far, but I will do so again because it is the 800-pound gorilla in the gym. All of this is predicated on Simmons not being a non-factor as a shooter, which is the X factor for the Nets X factor. Here's Simmons talking about it in an interview with Marcus Spears of Anscape. Spears, obviously people are obsessed with you from a shooting standpoint. What part of your game are you working on? Simmons, touch shooting, pull-ups, spot threes, just everything. When I'm allowed to be who I am and move how I need to move, I will be in a good place. The sky is the limit. Just building my confidence each day. The only way I'm going to get my confidence is just reps, and getting shots up. So I'm excited. I have heard all of this before. During every offseason while he was in Philly, he would consistently post videos of his shooting workouts where he was knocking everything down. But when the games became real, he went back to being a non-shooter. So I'll believe it when I see it in a game that means something to the standings. The Nets should proceed with caution here. Simmons returning to his elite NBA all-defense level will take some of the load off Bridges, who remained one of the best two-way players in the association despite his increased offensive workload, both before and after coming to Brooklyn. And Simmons regaining his ability as a playmaker would allow Dinwiddie to play off the ball and still be an offensive threat. But again, until Simmons can become even an average NBA shooter, he will be, as I said at the top, more of a wild card than an X factor, which doesn't help the Nets reach the Rabbi's best case scenario for them this season. There, Rabbi, I just teed it up for you.
Well, I was actually going to fucking talk about Ben Simmons. You can actually let me know you were teeing it up for me. One thing that I'm very curious about with Ben Simmons before we get to best case scenario is not just can he regain his shooting touch, but he needs to regain his shooting touch because, guys, you and I know, worst kept secret. Nothing fucking matters in the NBA except the last 8 minutes of a game. Maybe not even. Maybe even the last 5 minutes of the game. If you're a coach, if you're Jacques Vaughn, yeah, let's say last 4 minutes. But if you're Jacques Vaughn, are you putting Ben Simmons out there in the fourth quarter considering it's an offensive game?
Yeah.
That's the problem that needs to be, especially for a team that's going to be offensively challenged, because unless Mikal Bridges could take even another step up, there's no true superstar on this team, and there's no true guy that can really be the man on this team. And just remember, this was a 500 team last year once the new lineup came about. It wasn't a terrible team, but it obviously wasn't close to the standard that their 6th seed actually gave them.
No, and neither Bridges nor Dinwiddie, both of whom are 20-point scorers, scare defenses enough that they can make that offense can survive basically playing 4-on-5 with Simmons on the court.
Yeah, that's why he's not there. Best case scenario for the Nets is do the same thing that they did last year. Get a 6th seed and actually prove that you're not just the same team, not just a team that can live off a superstar. Be a team and get yourself back into the playoffs without having to go into the play-in. And the best case scenario also for them is possibly be better than the Knicks. I don't know if that's going to actually happen, but considering how much the Nets always want to win New York, you're never going to win the fans, but if you can win better record, then you got hot take people talking about, are the Nets a more stable franchise than the New York Knicks? The over-unders for the Nets are only 37.5 in most books, and the Knicks over-under is 44.5 to 45.5, depending on what book you are looking at. So that's why this is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is this is a bottom 3 to 4 team in the East. And instead of fighting the teams that they should be fighting with, which is Bulls, Magic, Hawks level, Bulls, Raptors, Hawks level. They're fighting with the Pistons, they're fighting with the Magic, and they're fighting with the Pacers in that second tier. The Pacers are good. Those teams are good, but they're 35 to 38 win teams. I think the Nets still think they could be a 42 to 45 win team, and I think they could be a 42 to 45 win team. They just need a lot of things to break right for them, and obviously Simmons is one of them. So we're going to see. This is going to be a very interesting season in Brooklyn, or a very boring season. I'm not sure exactly which one is which. Every year, guys, people say that NBA games are decided on the court, but now more than ever, they're decided in the front office. Baseball hot stove was the thing of the past. NBA hot stove is always going. And if you're James Harden, it's permanently going because you're always asking for a trade wherever you are. It's amazing. But we won't mention him anymore today. We won't mention him anymore today, Jay.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk some old faces and new places for the 23-24 season. Jay, Chris Paul is a Warrior, come out and play. What does he bring to a team who kind of obviously has a championship pedigree?
Yeah, Dame Time joining the Greek Freak in the land of the cheeseheads has become the story, of a Hall of Fame player changing zip codes, and rightfully so. But before that, it was Chris Paul, well-known and longtime adversary of the Golden State Warriors, joining the enemy in the Dubs' latest attempt to keep the Steph, Clay, Dre championship window open a little while longer. Now, we talked about it on our NBA draft show back at the end of June, and I laid out what I felt CP3 would bring to the Warriors. That was theoretical. Now it's starting to become actual. The big thing was, how would Paul react to likely having to come off the bench, as it was unlikely that Steve Kerr would change what is considered to be one of the best starting fives in the NBA. Kevin Looney at center, Andrew Wiggins at small forward alongside power forward Draymond Green in the front court, with the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson Splash Brothers backcourt. That fivesome was 24.3 points per 100 possessions better than their opponents. Now, word out of the Bay Area was that the Warriors were okay if CP3 didn't immediately buy into the idea of running the second unit. They gave him time to see the merits of the idea, and it does sound like he has come around, with CP3 saying, quote, I actually had the opportunity in 2008 to come off the bench for the Olympic team. You know what I mean? And that went pretty well. I think anybody who knows me knows I'm all about winning. Whatever I can do to help our team win. We've been hooping all summer, in informal scrimmages at the Chase Center. I think for the season, it's going to be whatever to help our team win. And I think I've at least tried to show or proven that my entire career, end quote. Now, there was a scene from the first day of training camp that showed Steph and CP3, along with assistant coach Bruce Frazier, talking about and then working on the Warriors hit and hand back game, which is a key part of their offense. And they were doing this after practice officially ended. Kerr said that Paul has done everything he can to quickly assimilate himself to the Warrior way, though he also said, quote, we're going to run plenty of pick and roll because Chris is one of the best pick and roll players in the world. But he's also showing that he's very interested in incorporating some of the stuff we already do, our split cut game and our movement. He's such a smart player that he's already figured out ways to be effective. We're going to lean into him and he's going to lean into us, and we'll meet halfway and the offense will form, end quote. Now, the unfortunate timing of Green's ankle sprain sustained in a pickup game at the end of September will temporarily change the lineup dynamics as Paul moved into the starting lineup for the first two preseason games before sitting out the third and coming off the bench in the fourth. Now, Green could be back for the start of the season next week. It's still up in the air, though. Now, if he's not, then we'll likely see an opening night starting five of Paul and Curry in the backcourt with Thompson, Wiggins, and Looney up front. It's an undersized lineup with Paul replacing a power forward and putting Thompson in the position of guard force, but it's not an unusual personnel grouping, as the Warriors have had Jordan Poole replace Green in the starting lineup for 3 games in their first round series with the Kings last season. Now, the larger, more long-term question is who will regularly come off the bench when Green returns. Now, it may depend on matchups, but Paul as the primary off-the-bench player makes the most sense, at least in the regular season. But either way, we'll likely see the substitution pattern have Paul on the floor anytime that Curry sits. After all, the issue of the Dubs offense struggling to score in non-Steph minutes has been a huge Achilles heel, even all the way back to the Kevin Durant days, and is one of, if not the reason, CP3 was brought on board. In the 8 seasons that Curry has been healthy and Kerr has been the head coach, the Warriors have had 5 top 5 offenses. In those same 8 seasons, CP3's teams have also had 5 top 5 offenses, and in his 3 seasons in Phoenix, the Suns actually scored more efficiently than the Warriors. The Suns were 5th in the NBA, 114.9 points per 100 possessions. The Warriors were 15th at 112.7 points per 100 possessions. Now, look, how CP3 and the Warrior adapts to the Warrior way and how the Dubs adapt to what the point guard does best will determine if this unlikely partnership will flourish or founder. The Warriors are only on the hook for the $30.8 million Paul has on his deal for this season, as next season's $30 million is not guaranteed. So the experiment will not lock either party into a long-term situation if it doesn't work out. But if it does, it could result in another championship banner going up to the rafters, the first at the Chase Center.
Be the second at the Chase Center, actually. They won in 2022, but that's all right. Yeah,
No,
it was the second. Yeah, they won it
2021.
2021, but it would still be the second at the Chase Center, by the way.
When did
The Oracle closed in 2019. The
All right,
Oracle
my
closed in
bad.
2019. But one thing, and by the way, you know how many games Chris Paul in his career he's come off the bench in the regular season?
In regular season, none.
That is correct. He is almost over 1,340 games, and that's
Well,
insane.
I mean, come on. That
I know it's Chris Paul, but
under,
it's just insane. Not even once to come back from injury. Not even we've seen Curry do that too. One thing I'm very interested to see is not who starts the game, but who closes the game.
Yeah,
Can Chris Paul get enough to the point where he's closing the game? I don't think we're going to see a lot of help from that Warriors team all year. I think
if he is closing, it's a question of who's sitting. Is it Draymond? Is it Looney with Draymond shifting to the 5?
Well, I think, like I said, I think it's going to be more. I think that's going to be more out of necessity. I think in that it's just a question of if Paul and Curry make sense on the floor together in closing time. That's actually
right. I mean, like I said, it's going to be
in.
matchup based. Though I will tell you this, Rabbi. I think if you're going to see it, you're probably more inclined to see it in the postseason than you will in the regular season, because they didn't bring Chris Paul in to win games in the regular season.
No, absolutely not.
I do think to win games in the postseason.
I do think, though, the Golden State Warriors do need to realize that you do need to do some work in the regular season, so you don't have to be playing game 7s on the road all of the time. They did win last year, but
that's true.
Ultimately, the Lakers killed them in conference semifinals. All right, Anthony, Jordan Poole. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. We're not fucking talking any Wizards basketball today. Let's talk Bradley Beal.
That's a former Wizard.
That is a former Wizard who did the right thing and finally got out of there. So he's a Phoenix Sun, part of the new Big Three.
Took him long enough.
It took a long time, but the money, Matt Ishbia will spend as much as he wants to kind of get the team he wants. All right. Bradley Beal, what is his fit going to be as he joins the Phoenix Suns?
Well, Bradley Beal, obviously, the last few years, and look at his stats from last season. 23 point a game scorer, average 5 assists, shot 84% for the free throw strike. But the biggest number is 90. That's the combined games he has played the last 2 seasons with the Washington Wizards. And we all know that he had that albatross of a contract that the Wizards gave him, which also included something that is distinct in today's NBA, a no-trade clause, which most teams don't even give out anymore. But Bill eventually did waive his no-trade clause. He is now a Phoenix Sun, and he, on paper, when you combine him with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, could be one of the most explosive trio of all-star players you can have on one roster. The thing is, though, when you look at the Phoenix Suns, is they don't have a true point guard starting, and that's what Bradley Beal is going to be playing majority of the time this season as he moves over from shooting guard to point guard. Now, offensively, he is a great mid-range scorer, which can actually help out. Unfortunately, when you have a guy like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant who can also get their own buckets and can also create their own shots one-on-one, space is going to be a bit of an issue when you got 3 guys who can go one-on-one and just score at will, particularly in the mid-range, but not much outside shooting to speak of or ball movement. That could be a bit of a question mark. And that's where Bradley Beal is going to have to maybe take a step back as far as his shot selection, as far as being more selective when he gets for hands, as far as also being able to create for others. So you got the Phoenix Suns. They have more, due to the DeAndre trade They have a little more depth off the bench. And obviously, Yusuf Nurkic basically is sliding into that center position. You want two things going to stand out with this team is going to be obviously ball movement. We all see, if you remember the Tony Douglas late Knicks, where you try to slide a shooting guard to a point guard position, that cannot always be a good thing because not all point guards are created equal, and a shoot first point guard. Not the greatest.
As the Knicks have known for every year until 2023.
Yeah, not the greatest thing in the world where you have two guys who can also score one-on-one. Remember the Denver series last year in the playoffs. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant had to play lights out for those 2 games for the Suns to win those 2 games, but eventually they wore down. So Bradley Beal is going to have to do 2 days. He's going to have to give him a throw scoring option, something they didn't have last year in that series. It was even more so when Chris Paul went down for the rest of that series. And he's going to have to provide the role of offensive facilitator, something that he has not done in most of his career. Remember, when he was in Washington, most of his career, he played off John Wall in the backcourt. So that's going to be the one thing I'm going to be looking at with the Suns. I know people are very heavy because of the star power and the offensive possibilities, but you look at the defensive question marks on this team and the lack of a true point guard. Remember, Gavin Payne is no longer on this team also. I'm kind of bearish on the Phoenix Suns right now because I want to see how this fit is gonna play out just on both sides of the court.
Well, the one thing that'll be interesting with the Suns is I don't think they give 2 shits about the regular season. There's teams that don't give a shit about the regular season.
A lot of money this season.
They spent a lot of money, but they did not spend that money to be a 54-win team and flame out of the first round. They spent that money for a championship. And I think you've also gotten the biggest issue. How many games can they get out of that nucleus together? Because Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, the fact if those 2 stay healthy, you might be looking at a rainbow territory there. They have to share the court, and Devin Booker been reliable. That guy has a good chance to really take one more step up to being a top 3 player this year.
By the way, Rabbi, I'll ask you this: of those 3, who you think would be the alpha male on this team? Like the guy
it's Durant. Come on,
it's Durant. I think the one thing that helps out a lot is I think the Suns know who the alpha male is on this team. The only person who thought he was the alpha male on this team is now in Portland, and that's DeAndre Ayton. He thought he was the alpha male on this team, and he's not there anymore. Booker is a very selfless player when he needs to be.
Anymore.
Yeah, Booker needs to be a selfless player when he needs to be. And as much as someone says it, the biggest issue with Beal is not the fact that he is he's selfish. It's the fact that he's been pretty much I hate to say this word, a loser in his NBA career being with the Wizards.
I wouldn't call him that, but I'd definitely call him injury prone, and that's something
injury prone and honestly on mediocre teams.
And the guys, we talk about obviously Phoenix's big 3 is going to be, the ones getting all of the ink and, and rightfully so. I mean, these are 3 all-star caliber players, who have all been the alpha at various points. But the intriguing part of that trade, that one, for me is Yusuf Nurkic, who essentially replaces Ayton at the 5. Now he's a solid complementary player. He's not a guy who's going to be looking to get his own or, feel slighted if he doesn't get enough touches. And he's going to be a big part of their complementary basketball, but he's also injury prone.
Big time.
Team that is talented has a depth issue, which is something we talked about when we broke down the Beal trade during the draft show. So to me, it's not a question, as much as it's a question of the big 3 staying healthy, it's a question of Nurkic staying healthy, and where's the rest of that rotation going to come from?
Not a
who's going to play point? Like if Bill goes down, who is playing point in this team?
They did resign.
I think Booker's going to be doing a lot of that. I think going into the season, I think Booker wants to do more of that.
We saw the Suns get stagnant when Booker was supposed to play the point against Denver in the playoffs.
They kind of have to, though. That's the problem. It's not by choice. It's by necessity.
No, it'll be interesting to see because obviously they can stagger Payne's minutes so that he's on the floor when one of Booker or Beal is not. So there is an actual traditional point guard, but you got, but obviously come closing time, it's a Booker and Beal backcourt. And how is that half court offense going to work? Now, obviously in the regular season, it may not be as big of a deal, but you guys know, come the postseason, most of the possessions are half court possessions. You need a guy who can initiate and facilitate and, get an offense into its sets and get the thing going. Neither one of those guys is their traditional point guard under those circumstances. So the regular season is going to be kind of like a chemistry lab for that team, trying to figure out how that's going to work.
And we'll always talk about how it blows up, as we always do when it comes to NBA chemistry. All right. We don't talk a lot about the Rockets, and I'm going to make this short, so we're not going to talk too much about the Rockets now. But Fred VanVleet is my player to watch. We didn't talk a lot about his signing. He signed a 3-year, $128 million contract. So he is getting paid a lot per season. But again, not as long as we see a lot of teams. He's only 29. And last season, he was 19.3 points, 4.1 rebounds, 7.2 assists for the former Wichita State player. Not a great scorer not a great percentage from the field. He's only shooting less than 40% from the field, but he is good. This is a team that having a star finally on a team full of alphas is going to be so intriguing. Jabari Smith is probably someone who needs a lot of work, but is a guy who could be a game changer when he has a point guard who can get him the ball. And guess what? That's what Fred VanVleet can do. Alperen Şengün has been a revelation in this team.
Yeah.
Now he's only 21 as a center, and he can actually develop off of the ball. He's been making way too many plays for a team that has been pretty bad, but now you can do some more. Jalen Green has a lot of chances to be at his best, and you got Amen Thompson, the better of the Thompson twins. Hold me now. So that'll be the real point guard of the future for this team. And then, with all of that being said, you have two of the more intriguing just pickups of the offseason. You have Ime Udoka, who I think is kind of, despite the baggage, is a home run for a young team.
Yeah.
You see what he did with the Celtics in 2022, kind of getting them really over the hump, especially in the second half of the season. And you better work for Ime Udoka. He's going to accept nothing less, especially on the defensive end. And that is not a guy who is a pushover of a coach. And that's going to be very important. Then you have Dillon Brooks. Only going to say this. Dillon Brooks got ejected from a preseason game due to a low blow 5 minutes into his Rockets career.
He just can't help himself, can he?
He can't. But we saw in the World Cup that this is a guy who at his peak is still a menace and honestly a gnat. And that's what Dillon Brooks is going to have to be. Now, will Dillon Brooks want to get himself some more attention? He's always called himself the best defensive player in the world. Will Dillon Brooks be making headlines this year? I don't know. All of these things could lead to a 35 to 40 win team, or it could be a chemistry experiment, as Jay just said, that goes boom so quickly. Either way, it's going to be fun. And with Fred VanVleet at the helm, you are going to want to watch. You are certainly going to want to watch this team.
I will agree with that, Rabbi. Here's the thing. Udoka and the addition of VanVleet gives the Rockets two things they didn't have last year, which was a pair of grownups in the room. And that definitely helps. It's a very young team otherwise. You need that steadying veteran presence at point guard. It also helps if that guy can actually drop buckets when you need him to. And here's the other thing. You talk about an explosive, elements in a chemistry experiment. Not crazy about the way that they did it, but Houston jettisoned
Kevin Porter Jr.
Yes, an unstable element in Kevin Porter Jr. I disagree with the fact that he was allowed to get that Houston and Oklahoma City were allowed to essentially swap him in picks before Oklahoma jettisoned him. I agree with people who say a guy under Kevin Porter's situation should not be allowed to be part of NBA business being conducted. But, either way, the CBA allows for it. So we have to, obviously it is what it is, but that's also another positive for the Rockets coming into this season is getting rid of him.
Sam Presti will do anything to get picks, by the way, whether in any way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but and also the thing, the enigma about Dylan Brooks is that for all the antics
Stupidity.
the clown's behavior, we forget he's a guy who averaged 18 points a game just 2 seasons ago. He can actually score and can be a very solid basketball player.
He just
when
needs
he's
to get
not
out of
doing
his
any
own
other
way.
stuff. Yeah, so I said this to my Dylan Brooks. It's like, look, if you're not ballsy enough to be the villain, then don't be a villain. Some people are not cut out to be that. Okay, it's okay to be a good basketball player and be borderline heelish. I mean, Dennis Rodman made a Hall of Fame career out of it, so it's very possible. But even with Udoka being the head coach, I don't think he's going to put up with Brooks' answers.
No,
I
and
think I
that's the
mentioned,
hope that he can rein
we
Brooks
know,
in a little bit.
and we know about all the situation in the Memphis Grizzlies locker room. So I think what Brooks is stepping into with Udoka as the head coach, it's going to be a night and day situation. I don't think he's going to be nearly as bad, but I do think if he's focused, he can't really be a big help to a Houston team that is still young, that's still building.
Yeah,
Hot
absolutely. As long as he stays out of his own damn way.
Hot take. Dennis Rodman would be exactly what Dylan Brooks is in the social media era. Probably worse. Just saying. All right. Remember, guys, before we do our predictions, 2 play-in teams made the conference finals last year, and 1 made the NBA finals. And that team, the Heat, were 5 minutes away from being eliminated from actually ever being in the postseason. So let's have some fun, guys. Anthony, let's go first and tell me who you think is going to be representing the East and the West playing for the statue of O'Brien in the postseason.
By the way, we haven't talked about this, but this is the first season that we're going to have an in-season tournament.
Yeah.
So I do wonder how that's going to. I know that the games count during the regular season, but I do want to know how that those extra games when you have to play for the championship.
1 extra game.
It's only one extra game, and everybody's gonna play that extra game afterwards anyway in the futures in their schedules. So everybody's going to be on the same wavelength when it comes to that. I think it's 2 extra games because it's a final four. It's a final four, but that's so that's going to be kind of. I like the idea considering what they've done. And again, the one thing that Adam Silver likes to do, I mean, I think we really accuse Rob Manfred of doing this in MLB, is try to tweak the formula and try to get everything a different way. Like, he listens to ideas, and I think that's something different instead of kind of making him up in the head. Like, Manfred kind of makes him up in his own head. Silver kind of builds on others. All right, we're getting off track, Anthony.
Wait, all right. I know, but I'm gonna throw this out there for the misogynist out there. Yes, Adam Silver stole the idea from the WNBA. Okay, they've been having an in-season tournament for years now. So let's get that out the way.
He also, by the way, they also stole that idea from European soccer.
Yeah.
So that's always been happening all the time. So.
Honestly, just real quick, I want to throw my 2 cents in here. I wasn't initially crazy about it, but I kind of come around to understand why. The whole point is that Adam Silver wants to have stars playing as often as possible. And if you if you put enough incentive behind this this beginning of the season tournament, he's hoping that it'll have stars playing. And also the only difference in terms of how it affects the schedule is that, you're going to spend the front half of the 82 games essentially playing only the teams that are mostly in your pod and whatnot. And then you'll kind of go from there as the stages advance. But, honestly, anything that gets guys load managing less is fine by me.
You're only playing them Tuesdays and Fridays, by the way, so it's probably half of the time more than honestly. So it's not as bad. All right, finals predictions.
All right. For me in the East, I'm going to go with the Celtics. I do feel like they're this close. I do feel like they're this close. I think Jason Tatum is just continuing to show why he's one of the best players in the game. I think Jaylen Brown finally learns how to use his right hand for a change. But I do think Kristaps Porzingis should be a big boost for this lineup. If he can remain on the court, He's a big who can stretch the paint offensively, defensively, chip in down the paint. So I do like the Celtics makeup, and I do think they get out of the East. In the West, I really like the Los Angeles Lakers, and this is because this is a team that I think keeping the pieces that got them to the conference finals would have been an accomplishment and a win, but they added more pieces. The Christian Wood was definitely the kind of biggest stunner of all this. They added Gabe Vincent, Tony Prince, Cam Reddish. They added some depth that we didn't see last season. And when you think about Darvin Ham and being a defensive first head coach who was able to get LeBron and AD to buy in through this as the season wore on, and basically to see this team grow into an also ran and an afterthought to be in the conference finals. And I do think they have a chip on their shoulder how the season ended last year with the Nuggets sweeping them, and perhaps Coach Malone talking a little too much that might have fired him up a bit.
Oh yeah.
But I do think and because I'm still in mourning of Winning Time being canceled by HBO, I'm going with the Celtics and the Lakers as my NBA Finals prediction.
All right. The thing about the Lakers, Anthony, is LeBron needs to stay healthy, and as does Anthony Davis, and it'll be interesting to see if Anthony Davis takes a shot outside of the paint, since according to John Hollinger, he hasn't done that since the bubble. So
6, but 6 3-pointers. But also, I do want to see the progression of Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, who was big in the Lakers' postseason run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Jay.
All right. From the East, unlike Anthony, I am all in on the Milwaukee Bucks. I basically laid out why on our last show, where I broke down what Damian Lillard gives them on offense, as well as what they stand to lose defensively. But at the end of the day, even in an Eastern Conference that may be a little bit more wide open as compared to last season, due to moves made and not made by the likes of Boston, Philly, New York, Miami, and Cleveland, giving each a certain degree of uncertainty over and above where they were coming into last season's playoffs. The Bucks, to me, just look to be in the best position to come out of the East. Like I said on the last show, John Horst didn't bring Dame Time to Milwaukee to help them win a random Tuesday night game in the regular season in January. He brought in one of the most clutch players of his generation to improve their chances of winning a not so random Tuesday night game, playoff game in May and hopefully June. In the West, I'm going back with the Nuggets. I'm going to run it back with them. It starts with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, the two cornerstones that led them to their first title this past spring, along with Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, who was huge for the Nuggets in the finals, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to round out a starting five that's as good as any in the association. And then it's about replacing a pair of veteran glue guys in Bruce Brown and Jeff Green. The Nuggets brought in, Justin Holiday, could be a nice rotation piece, but the development of Denver's youngsters will be a key to a repeat trip to the NBA Finals. Now, it starts with Christian Brown, the second-year player out of Kansas, had a 15-point on 7 of 8 from the floor and 4 boards in 19 minutes in the Game 3 Finals win over Miami. And that's given GM Calvin Booth and a lot of others in the organization, has made them very enthusiastic about the former Jayhawks ceiling, along with the ceiling of their 2023 draft picks. Got small forward Julian Strawther from Gonzaga, point guard Jalen Pickett from Penn State, power forward Hunter Tyson from Clemson. All were targeted because they're older, 21, 23, and 23 years old, respectively, and all were 30-plus minute per game players and major contributors for their college teams last season, with Pickett making second-team All-America. If he and Brown specifically can be regular contributing rotation players, I believe a repeat is possible from the Rocky Mountains.
All right, so we're going to do something that we've never done in the history of our predictions.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna match Anthony's pick. I'm going Lakers Celtics, forever winning time. Let's start with the Celtics because they seem to be
Roll Pride, baby.
That's right, baby. Roll Pride. Let's start with the Celtics because they seem to be kind of the easier choice. I do like Milwaukee. I don't like their depth, and I think there's a lot that depends on the health of Chris Middleton, and honestly, the health of Damian Lillard too, and the fact that can he still be a 25 to 30 point per game scorer, because that's what they're banking him to be. And so, with that, the Celtics now have a pretty reliable four guys who can always be on the floor. Drew Holiday has a chip on his shoulder, probably as big as the state of Wisconsin, for the guy who said, "I want to be a Buck for life," and then immediately gets traded one day later. If Kristaps Porzingis stays healthy, this is a 20-point per game scorer and somebody who could take the load off of Jaylen Brown, who, yes, will probably find a way to actually shoot with both of his hands this season. Let's hope. Jason Tatum, who can be an MVP candidate, I think, if all of the chips fall right. With that, and you have some of the pieces that you've had before on that team, and I think the Celtics are the deepest team out there, and I think that they're probably the best choice to win the title to win the East. Here's why I like the Lakers. Not only do I like LeBron and AD kind of doing like this one more big ride, but they don't have to depend. You don't have to depend on them 100% of the time. Now you know you can win with an AD lineup. Now you know you can win without AD at times. And I think, with that being said, it is amazing for a team that started 2-10 last year, and everybody who wanted Rob Pelinka's head on a stick, that this team managed to get rid of Russell Westbrook, managed to get trade assets so they could be in the position to get pieces possibly at midseason. Like D'Angelo Russell is a tradable contract right out of the gate that they re-signed. They signed so many good. They even signed Taurean Prince, another guy who's going to be a rotation. This is a rotation that can go 8 or 9 or 10 deep. And that's rare for a Lakers team. I think Darvin Ham did an excellent job in his first season. He has the Milwaukee Bucks pedigree. You saw what they did with that. You saw what this team did without Darvin Ham with the Bucks last season. So let's see what happens. But Anthony, forever winning time, roll Pride. We are in the same boat. Lakers Celtics is my NBA Finals pick.
Yeah, make sure you're stepping in the same direction.
Yeah, and also too, because I'm a video gamer, this takes you back to my Lakers Celtics days with Sacred Genesis. So yeah, I'm going all the way back.
Oh man! All right,
that is going all the way back.
It is going all the way
Rabbi,
back.
quick note: as expected, the Road Warriors went into Globe Life Field and beat up on the home team, Houston, 8-5, Series 2.
By the way, and I want to parlay tonight.
I have to say this too, because I have to say this too. Great season, Liberty. We'll be back next year.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but the Las Vegas Aces has really proved in this finals, especially gritty performance tonight.
Gritty performance tonight.
After losing probably their best player this postseason, Asia Wilson stepping up for her and really proving that she probably should have been in that MVP conversation, at least being second. But that's for another day, for another time. For Jay Kaplan, Anthony Strait, I'm Steve Rabinowitz. Socials are important, and I have some for you. YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines to watch our mugs on demand. You'll see the link to the show tomorrow. Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines if you want to see this live. And on TwitX at ONTH Sports Lines. TwitX. It is the new way for us to say Twitter. Please pick it up. We'll talk NFL midseason next, and that'll be in about 2 weeks. So I might ask for costumes from you, gentlemen, even if it's a little something.
And gentlemen, you were remiss, but you guys know what's happening Saturday, right? You're remiss in mentioning it, so I am going to put you on the spot.
It's your birthday.
That's right.
Happy birthday, sir. Happy birthday to co-partner on this show, and not happy birthday. I have a cold brain, so just
that's right. And happy birthday to one of our founding partners, Stephen D. Ferguson, whose birthday is in fact tomorrow, the 19th.
Happy birthday, Steve.
Must be kind of saying curse words at the Phillies right now. All right. Until then, let's see each other next time for On the Sports Lines. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.